Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Becky Schilling. It's great to have you with us for the first eMarketer Tech Talk of 2024. Today, we're discussing how brands can avoid wasting time and money chasing the wrong connected TV ad spending strategies. With that said, let me introduce our guest. Stephen Graveman is a strategic content and research manager at Mountain, and he's joining us from Tampa. Hey, Stephen.
Hey, Becky, how are you today?
Great, thank you. Before we get into it, to our audience, let's keep it conversational. Just use the chat window on the right to tell us where you're joining us from and to submit your questions. We'll do our best to get to as many of your live questions as we can during the Q&A, so keep them coming. We have great content planned for you today. Stephen, over to you.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. We're going to be looking at the top mistakes that brands make with their CTV ad spending. A little bit about me. My name is Stephen Graveman. I'm the Strategic Content and Research Manager at Mountain. I've been with Mountain for going on 3 years now. And it's been interesting. It's been interesting with that tenure, seeing just how much CTV and streaming has changed in 3 years. It's kind of been remarkable. But most of all, what I like to kind of point out is that I think a lot of us at Mountain feel this way, is that we are marketers ourselves. So we come from marketing backgrounds. We are marketers, working with marketers. We understand the world of marketing, and kind of getting a front row seat to the changing landscape of streaming has been really interesting as a marketer. So today we're going to be kind of looking at the key takeaway of being 2024 is holding unique challenges for advertisers. And then for the ones who are thinking strategically and coming into this year with the right mindset, the right tools, the right strategies, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to be found in these challenges. We'll be kind of looking at that through four main areas today. First off, we are going to be reviewing the big year that was CTV, or sorry, big year that was 2023 for CTV. We'll be looking at why streaming and then the entertainment industry at large, the challenges that are facing them, both of them, are going to be an opportunity in disguise in 2024. We'll look at how to avoid the top 3 mistakes that brands make when buying TV media, what mistakes those are, how you can avoid it. And then finally, we are going to look at the CTV tools and technologies that you can use starting today for year-round success, not just in 2024, but in the subsequent years to come. So to start it off here, I don't think it's an overstatement to say that 2023 was a tremendous year for CTV. In the years prior, it really felt like advertisers, media companies, viewers, everybody's kind of trying to wrap their minds around streaming a little bit. I know personal viewing habits have evolved and changed. I think all of us in the last 5 years have made streaming television maybe more of our day-to-day lives. And then, of course, we all are getting better at navigating fragmentation, right? The streaming landscape is not what it was. I remember when, I mean, me personally, I've never had linear television, never had a TV hooked into the wall. I've always had either Netflix by mail or streaming. So I was there on day one of that. And I remember when Netflix was the only game in town and you had to go to Netflix and Hulu. These days it's a lot more complicated, right? So if you think of a TV show or movie and you want to watch it, you have to go down that Google rabbit hole and you have to try to figure out where it is. And it's a little bit more complex than ever. But I think in 2023, we saw viewers understand that and kind of wrap their minds around it. We saw media companies, after years of hyper growth, really understand how to prop up these platforms with content and keep them going. And then we saw advertisers get used to the idea that CTV is, it's television's good looks with digital marketing's brains. It's a performance marketing platform, which the television has never been. And then on top of that, we saw a lot on the streaming services with regards to ads. We saw Netflix and Disney Plus get comfortable with ads. Late last year, both rolled out advertising on their platforms. I think with Netflix, it was particularly interesting because they were always famously subscription-based, kind of anti-ad. That was kind of their avenue. So watching them make that transition, they paired with Microsoft. They hit the ground running really quickly. There was a little bit of a learning curve, but them and Disney have had a year now to get that get propped up on it and get their feet from under them. And we'll go into that in a few minutes, but that is actually really going to impact these services going forward, including their outlook on ad-supported streaming in the years to come. And then Amazon Prime, they announced ad support as well. So now every major streaming service is offering some form of ad-supported streaming. That's huge. Again, this was something that just a few years ago was pretty niche. Now every major platform is doing it. And the good news is that consumers are not that opposed. I think a lot of people think of advertising, and there's sometimes this initial reaction about being bombarded by ads and being uncomfortable with it. But the reality is, consumers, and studies back this up, is that consumers are willing to be served ads if they are targeted towards them, towards their interests, their hobbies, their lifestyles, and they get something out of return, which in this case with streaming is to save money, which we will go into in a few minutes as well. But 2023, all those good news about 2023 side, there was also a year of challenges. We all know some of the things that happened. We saw the Hollywood strikes. There was a writer's strike and an actor's strike. Part of that was driven by streaming residuals, and that led up to a drying up of releases. This will continue to impact streaming in theaters for the coming months. I think the first half of 2024 is really going to be impacted by this, especially. Some shows and films got wrapped up production before the strikes, and they were kind of able to move forward pretty quickly afterwards. Some ground to a halt. Remember, with streaming, there's kind of two avenues that how they replenish their content slate. There's the Hollywood major theatrical releases. They go through the theater chain system, then they go to usually video on demand and then streaming. And then there is the exclusive buying rights for content, or produced in-house. So like Disney produces a lot of maybe Marvel and Star Wars. Netflix snatches up a lot of exclusive programming and participates in bidding wars. All of this is going to really kind of make streaming a little sparse in the next few months. The CTV market, it's also continued to fragment. As I talked about a minute ago, it has been harder and harder sometimes to kind of navigate that a little bit. We're actually even seeing some services start to consolidate. We've seen Disney and Hulu Plus, I'm sorry, Disney Plus and Hulu start to merge together after Disney bought out their stake in Hulu. We are starting to see some rumors and murmurs. I won't say I'm here just in case, but we are seeing some rumors of further consolidation is going to happen. So the landscape looks to be kind of shifting. And then, of course, streaming is getting more expensive. Consumers are feeling the pinch a little bit. We have seen the rates go up. We have seen, again, as the market continues to fragment, there's more services that are competing for your time and money with must-see TV. So it's kind of this 1-2 punch here of a dried up content slate, continuing fragment market, and then more expensive monthly fees. But on the surface, that sounds pretty startling. But and it is having a real, I should say, it is having a real impact on how viewers and advertisers are thinking about streaming and their ad spend. But there is a lot of benefits in these challenges. If you approach this with the right mindset, with, like I said earlier, the right tools, the right strategies, and performance marketing mindset, you can really avoid the common media buying mistakes. And I think that is really what's happening. We're seeing a lot of advertisers see these challenges. They're maybe not thinking about the good news that happened in 2023. They're looking at the maybe a little more pessimistic things going on, and they are getting the wrong takeaway of this. I think it is easy for people to kind of slip into a more negative mindset on this, but there's a lot of opportunities. It just requires coming into the year with the right strategies and thinking with your head on straight. So, we're going to go through the challenges a little bit. The first one is as I mentioned, the impact of the Hollywood strikes. Like I said, the lack of new content is having a very real impact on streaming. And it kind of came at a difficult time because these streaming services are kind of right at this moment where they have had years of hypergrowth. They've really bumped up their subscriber base. Internally, they obviously have thresholds for when they hit a certain subscription level that they raise prices or they try to move on to recouping their cost a little bit. Um, and this is kind of, this kind of 1-2 punch has really had an impact on the landscape in general. But with streaming, one interesting thing about this is, again, it's always on demand. There's always something new to you that's old. Um, I don't know. It's kind of rethinking the idea of reruns and reality. I am sure everybody here, nobody can raise a hand, but I can see your hands. But uh, I'm sure many of you have been like me and have discovered old shows thanks to streaming, shows that you've never watched before, um, and kind of loop back around on that. And then, of course, there's comfort food shows, right? There are the shows. There's Seinfeld. There's Friends. There's uh, um, Arrested Development. There's these shows that kind of, and we've seen these services actually have bidding wars over these shows, by the way, because they are that important to their bottom lines. It is important to have these services on here, and people will always revert back to episodes of The Office or whatever to kind of that's what they want to watch. So in fact, some of their biggest legacy hits will always be popular. We found out on Mountain, the majority of ads that we run are through older content. So this really kind of reinforces that these shows are always going to be popular regardless of what's new. And it is going to help kind of weather this quiet period. New content is coming. And when it comes, by the way, it is going to have a big fanfare. There's going to be a lot of coverage on this. There's going to be a lot of excitement around these shows and these films. But we are going to see a lot of the legacy content and the excitement around that continue to propel streaming in the meantime. So I talked earlier about the price hikes, and rising costs are having a real impact on audiences and their wallets. Drivers, like I said earlier, a saturated streaming market, they're really challenging streamers to continue generating that revenue, while media companies are looking to recoup their losses on dying linear TV channels. So we're kind of seeing this push towards raising the cost. Like I said, it kind of came at a tricky time a little bit with the landscape. But what's interesting about this is that the price of streaming has continued to climb past the normal inflation rate. So I have on here that now over 50% of all major streaming services are charging more than double their initial cost. That's interesting in itself, but I also think it's a caveat to that is interesting is that a lot of these streaming services launched in the last 2 to 3 years. So within 2 to 3 years now, we have seen a doubling or more of prices. I know my wallet's been hit by that. I'm not going to list all the streaming services I have, but it's continuing to go up year over year. And analysts are predicting even more price increases for 2024. But in response, more consumers, they're seeing this, and they're not dropping streaming as much as they are dropping their expensive ad-free tiers and embracing ads. As I said earlier, consumers are more likely to be accepting of ads when they get something in return. Saving money is a big motivator. I think that people have spent the last several years in these ecosystems. They've gotten used to their favorite shows. Like I said earlier, if you want to see the latest Marvel, the latest Star Wars, you have to have Disney. If you want to see the latest DC Comics stuff, you have to have Max. These services all have the kind of their little niches, and people have gotten used to that, and you don't want to give up their Friends or The Office or at Seinfeld or any of these things. It's easier to fall back on ad-supported streaming to save money on that. Also, while ad-supported streaming, or sorry, ad-free streaming continue to climb in price, we've actually seen the opposite happen with ad-supported streaming, or not an increase in that. We've seen the prices for ad support stay stagnant. They've increased very, very little in comparison. So it's getting to become a better and better deal for a lot of consumers to just embrace the ads, which again are targeted towards them. They are often applicable to their lives, and they're saving themselves money. And then consumers are, like I said, they're more receptive to ads today, especially if you're getting something in return. We have a stat here that you can see with regards to, we did this on Mountain Research. We looked at what's driving viewers to ad-supported streaming. And you can see the biggest percentage, 65%, is that it gives them more flexibility to save money. But I also find it interesting is that one seems pretty obvious, right? Saving money is always nice. But the other ones on here, 21% say they're used to ads with other TV services or streaming options. So there's really no difference. 16% say they enjoy watching ads as much as a way to take breaks during their streaming. 12% said they enjoy watching ads as a way to stay up to date with the products that are relevant to them. Again, so many people are seeing things that are applicable to their lives. I think we've all been here before. I know I have, where you're watching TV, streaming TV, and you see the latest release on something that's interesting to you, or the latest product that you had no idea was hitting the market. And then 10% said they find the ads entertaining to watch in their own right, which ties back into the targeted advertising and how it applies to the consumer. So, like I said, consumers are going all in on ads, and it's kind of been interesting to watch streaming services and viewers in parallel start to become more ad friendly at this time as the CTV landscape continues to shift. So streamers where they're seeing more ad-supported CTV. They actually, streaming companies, as I said earlier, they are looking to recoup their losses. They are looking to make these services profitable after years of hypergrowth. And they're seeing ad-supported CTV and then the rise of free ad-supported streaming as a great way to reduce that customer churn. Netflix has talked about earlier, how they got used to ads in the last year. They've really got their feet from under them. They have supported ads and really built a model, which for them was a big deal. It has been very successful. They are actually talking about how the CEO was saying growing ad-supporting memberships is their #1 priority for the immediate future. And then likewise, Disney, again, new to the ad game, they're so all in on ads that they are now predicting that 88% of all subscriptions of Disney Plus will be ad supported by 2028. So just 4 years from now, they're almost 90% of all subs, according to Disney, will be ad supported. And I think that's wild. We have an e-marketer stat here as well. This is a very interesting information that by September this year, over half the population in the US, 180.2 million viewers, will be streaming ad-supported content. And again, I think we reflect on our own viewing habits, and I think I've been more receptive to streaming as I have more streaming services in my portfolio, and the prices continue to climb, and there's more hitting the market. It's becoming less jarring than it used to be. So on that note too, we were talking about fragmentation. There's no denying that we've seen a lot of movement in the streaming space with regards to fragmentation and then further consolidation. Again, like I said, we're seeing Disney and Hulu, and we're seeing these services start to kind of collapse in each other. After a big bang explosion of all these streaming services entering the space, we're kind of seeing the big crunch a little bit. But the idea of fragmentation is pretty frustrating for customers. It's off, but it's a sign of market maturity. So it can be a little bit frustrating for consumers and advertisers, but overall, it is a sign of a healthy market. We are seeing more options available. Like I said earlier, it used to just be Netflix and then Netflix and Hulu. Clearly, this landscape is very different today. There are streaming services for basically anything you can think of. And there's more content than ever that's at your fingertips. It's led to more streaming services and options, and it's also led to more advertising support. There is not a one-stop shop for your CTV ad spending these days. There's no equivalent to Google for search. So this has kind of led to some headaches. Advertisers today are having to navigate with a exploding market, more options than ever, more walled gardens than ever to play in. And there is kind of equal popularity. The average US consumer has 4 streaming service subscriptions. Paid service subscriptions, not counting things like FAST channels. So it can be very, very, very hard to hit those consumers everywhere they are, whenever they're watching. Not to mention the audiences that are churning and burning. There are people who subscribe to Disney Plus for a month and they watch new season of Mandalorian and then they hop off and they hook over to Netflix and they stream the new season of the Umbrella Academy and they hop off. They kind of keep going around like that. It's advertisers are having to find a way to follow those consumers from service to service and across more services than ever. And this is, like I said, it's causing a little bit of headache. as they potentially spend more time, energy, and effort into trying to buy TV media. So mistakes when they're buying the TV media, we are seeing three major mistakes that brands are making. They're taking these takeaways from 2023. They are maybe getting the wrong impression out of this, or they just are pursuing the wrong avenues on this. The first one is that they are focusing too much on TV inventory. They don't focus on attribution enough. The second is they are wasting time and missing their audience by buying inside the wall gardens. Like I said, audiences are hopping around. If you're only buying inventory through a service at a time, it wastes that time, money, resources. And then again, it doesn't follow the viewer from service to service. And then third, they're not buying on premium, safe, brand safe inventory. This doesn't just get you the most bang for your buck and the most eyeballs in your ads. It is the most security for your account. Premium inventory, and again, brand safe inventory is monitoring. It's following the metrics and giving you the real-time feedback that you can see that your ads, how they're performing, that they are converting audiences, that they're not just reach plays. If you're just using it for reach, and again, going back to the number one here, if you're not focusing on attribution, you might as well just be buying on linear television. So marketers, like we talked about the fragmentation. We've talked about how they need to find the viewers across service to service and how they are trying to kind of navigate this new market. Multiple deals, they need to find a way to kind of do this through this fragmentation, and multiple direct deals with streaming services can be cumbersome. Success and outreach can be very hard to standardize. Plus, measurement, reporting, and targeting vary across platforms. You think about how many hoops you have to jump through just to buy media across multiple services, measuring the outcome. You're taking your performance on one channel and trying to compare it to how it's working on another channel. And again, as we said earlier, consumers are hopping between services, or services are dropping content and are changing their audience targeting, and that's their audience model, and that's impacting subscription numbers. So it kind of becomes this little bit of a cat and mouse game, right? Where you're trying to chase your audience through the shifting landscape, and the ground is not steady under your feet. It's constantly moving around, and it requires a lot of effort and a lot of time and money to try to play in these wall gardens, to try to deal with all these deals simultaneously and follow those audiences. So how can advertisers do this? Because again, we talked about how this is a sign of the market maturing. This is not going to go away. We are going to see more continued change in the CTV landscape. Diversifying delivery is a big one here. It allows you to kind of publish across multiple platforms, and that's crucial for CTV advertisers. Cross-channel solutions can really help with the fragmentation and make it easier. There is a little bit more of a one-stop shop to this. You can deploy ads across multiple services for a lot less effort. But while it may alleviate fragmentation, advertisers need to be cautious. There is more to CTV advertising than just premium networks and putting it out on as many services as possible. Private marketplace deals brokered by CTV ad platforms with top-tier networks, they can ensure brand safety and access to that premium inventory. Really, really recommend that. Private marketplace deals can really help, again, offer that extra layer of protection for your ad dollars, and then ensure that your ads are being seen on the biggest channels with the biggest shows. And then there's, of course, a little bit of a spillover effect, right? If your ads, your brands, let's say your brand is a smaller to medium challenger brand, and you're advertising on a top-tier network across one of the hottest shows right now, that elevates your brand's awareness and the consumer's perspective of your brand more than if you were advertising on the 58th channel down on the bottom of the Roku list that not everybody's watching. Like I said, there are very, very niche channels out there. You want to be on these channels that are hitting the biggest audience possible. So programmatic solutions have also helped with helping navigate this fragmented landscape. They streamline the time from ad pitch to screen time by using algorithmic tools to automate the buying and selling of digital ad space, including CTV ads. These tools have allowed advertisers to create the new rules for how, when, and where ads are launched instead of just placing ads manually. So it kind of gives you an advantage over your competitors not using the tech. And it is worth pointing out that, yeah, as I said, it gives you a competitive advantage. It's also giving your competitors an advantage. This is one of those things where, you may not be using it, your competitors probably will. This is a key element in CTV performance strategy. Again, it allows you to take the channel to its maximum potential, to treat it as a performance marketing platform, to reach the audiences that matter most. And then advertisers, like I said, they're reaching that right audience at the right time, at the right place. We talked earlier about how CTV is on demand. We talked about streaming. There's multiple services and multiple networks to hop across. With this, whenever they sit down to watch TV, regardless if that's 6 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, whatever channel, they are getting the ads served to them. It kind of creates a like the biggest moment, the big game and every coming up, it kind of creates that moment every year, or I'm sorry, every day, by giving you the widest possible audience reach. It also gives an advantage, like I said, over competition not using the tech. So it's really important to at least be aware of the technology, let alone employing it. When paired with automatic optimization, you take programmatic inventory even further. It gives advertisers greater ROAS for less effort. They get on their campaigns without a lot of day-to-day oversight and the time and the energy spent. You're just setting a few clicks and you're set. Programmatic inventory has become increasingly popular at the same time as another marketing mentality, and it's a term that I used earlier, performance marketing. We have seen the rise of performance marketing become more and more relevant. We are seeing advertisers go all in on this. Again, it ensures that their ad spend is being applied properly. They're always reaching the right audience. And again, CTV has made the television into a performance marketing channel alongside paid search and social. But it's important to note as well that performance marketing approach to programmatic inventory differs from a brand awareness one. How you approach these performance marketing, like I said earlier, it is a different play. Brand awareness is a little bit more of a broader, obviously a broader perspective. Linear television, a little bit more is a brand awareness play. Performance marketing and how you apply to programmatic inventory is a bit more complex. So it's important to have a performance marketing mindset kind of top of mind across all the tools and strategies that you're using. So to wrap it up, we have 4 key takeaways today that I think everybody should at least walk away with. 1, Hollywood strikes, the rising cost in the market fragmentation. It sounds alarming, I get it. But they hold opportunities for advertisers who are entering this year prepared. If you haven't entered this year prepared and you're watching this today and you're thinking, oh no, there's still time. It is one of those things where, the less time you spend getting ready for this, every day is wasted. So there is a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of diamonds in the rough. You just have to be prepared to seek those out. 2 is that rising costs are driving ad-supported streaming. We talked earlier about how streaming services are doubling the price, how ad-supported streaming is continuing to stay the same or barely go up. This has been a boom for everybody, from streamers to brands to even viewers. 3, too many brands are ignoring the attribution. They don't make private marketplace buys, and they're not buying inventory directly. Or they are buying inventory directly. And then 4, cross-channel advertising, a performance marketing mindset, and programmatic solutions will help brands overcome 2024's challenges. And Becky, do you have any questions from the audience today?
We sure do. Thank you so much for sharing all that great information about streaming's big crunch and the opportunities advertisers can use to rethink their ad spend in 2024. And I'm definitely going to be borrowing your phrase ad envy for use in the future. So thank you for that one.
Thank you.
As you mentioned, we have a lot of questions. So let's get started. You touched on service consolidation. What do you think the streaming landscape will look like by this time next year?
Yeah, I think the streaming landscape is going to continue to, excuse me, I think the streaming landscape is going to continue to change. As we said earlier, we are going to see more changes. We are going to see more shifting around of services and consolidation. It's kind of hard to predict, but I think we are finally, hopefully, seeing maybe the end of so much rampant fragmentation. Don't get me wrong, I think we're still going to see it, but I think instead of that, we're just going to see services, instead of seeing services splinter off ad infinitum, we are going to see, like I said earlier, that consolidation. As I mentioned earlier, Disney, Hulu, they have rolled content together. I don't know if anybody's logged in their Hulu or Disney Plus apps recently, but now, like if you log into Disney Plus, Hulu's there. If you have both subscriptions, your Hulu content is there. And if you're in Hulu, vice versa. One interesting thing to note about that as well is I have the ad-free version of Disney Plus, but I do have ad-supported Hulu. And it is serving ad-supported Hulu within Disney Plus. So they are balancing both the services. There's talks of combining it into one. We also seen companies like Verizon. They've been bundling together Netflix and Max for consumers. I think we're going to see more of that. It's kind of like the old cable companies a little bit, where these providers are bundling services together for maybe less cost. Um, like I said earlier, these services can cost a lot of money to operate and maintain, and that many of them they're exiting the hyper growth phase. They are looking to kind of maintain that momentum and expand their audience after massive subscription boost. Uh, we are seeing analysts predict that the rise of fast and ad-supported streaming is signaling that the streaming landscape is about to lose some of its major players. So we might be seeing some companies shutting down their services to save cost and selling content to others. As we mentioned earlier, again, it's expensive to run these services. And there are so many in the market right now, and there's so many competing brands or services looking for your dollars and your limited time, or most of us have limited time. And we've already seen some of this happen. We've seen Max removing some programming, including their own original HBO content. So Westworld is a great example of that. HBO produced everything like that. They took it off their service and licensed it out to a fast channel. We're seeing Disney, they're not selling it around, but just months after their Willow revival, they took it off. So it's not that I think for years, these streaming services spent all this time and money building up a massive slate of offerings that kind of were never leaving. You just knew they were always going to be there. They only grew their library, right? They never shrank it. Now we're starting to see some shrinking. Now we're starting to see some services say, it's costing a lot of money to be paying these residuals or to keep this programming on our service when our data shows that very few people watch it. So I think we're going to see some shifting around like that, and that's going to maybe possibly lead to some services again consolidating or getting out of the market altogether. Um, I think we are going to see a lot of changes, like I said, and then as ad support continues to climb, it is crucial to be on top of industry updates and using those cross-channel CTV solutions that I mentioned to ensure that you're not staying locked in one walled garden.
And one of our audience members had a question that piggybacks off that a little bit. They said, do you think the higher cost for streaming will cause a cable resurgence?
That's an interesting question. I don't think so, but I like this question. I think that I think as I mentioned earlier, audience consumer behaviors have changed, right? I can only speak for myself and my friends and my family, but everybody I know has changed how they are viewing television. And, cable obviously has DVR, so there are ways to kind of make linear television appointment television. But a lot of this programming is going to stream. When you look at Disney and the amount of content that they're pumping into Disney Plus. And then, they own ABC. So they are producing content on linear television, but that all ends up on Hulu the next day. Um, I think it's going to be hard for a lot of people to maybe go back to linear television, the expensive cost, the fees, which still, when compared to streaming, can be rivaling or if not more expensive. The lack of targeted ads, as we mentioned earlier, consumers are much more receptive to ads when they are applicable to their lives. And then again, the content that, if you spent the last several years getting on-demand content that was exclusive, your favorite Netflix exclusive, your favorite Disney Plus exclusive, it's going to be probably hard to go back to linear television where that's not on there, and you might just still be catching it on Hulu the next day anyway.
Fair enough. I understand premium inventory is safer, but is there anything else I can do to ensure the CTV inventory I'm buying is safe from ad fraud?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, every ad dollar counts right now. And that's fraud, and that's making fraud something that's rightfully top of mind for advertisers. It's worth pointing out that as CTV continues to boom in popularity, we are going to see more potentially bad actors rise. Anything like that that's getting more and more popular, we've seen it time and time again with tech. It ends up attracting uh, some bad actors into the landscape who are looking to make a quick buck, who are maybe not offering even if there's not outright scams, they're maybe not offering the best return on your ad spend. And unfortunately, not every CTV ad platform offers that same level of protection. So, uh, Mountain, in addition to advertising on 150 plus premium networks, we have built-in fraud protections to our platform. We actually remove fraud and we take it very seriously because it hurts our ROI. Just to be honest, connected TV platforms that are focused on only driving reach, they can use fraudulent impressions to artificially fulfill those contract breaches. We contract on return on ad spend, so any fraudulent impressions that you're getting is just going to eat into our ability to drive the performance that we need. I think when you are looking to make your inventory or buying inventory that's safe from ad fraud, it is looking at platforms, whether it's Mountain or anybody else, looking at platforms that are have that ad fraud built in, that don't have a reason to be pulling the wool over your eyes. Looking at this very cautiously and skeptically and seeing how these services, how it would not benefit them. Further is that, I can only speak to us, but Performance TV, Mountain Performance TV, we actually combat ad fraud through three key features. We have the premium inventory through the private marketplace that I talked about earlier. We have the transparent reporting, so there's no emails to go through, hoops to jump through, anything like that to kind of see how your ads are performing. You can log on and see it in real time. I think that's crucial. That transparency is crucial. And then we have cross-device verified visits. That's a model that we use to measure outcomes and show viewers who converted, giving you hard data on your ROAS. And it's not just any ad, but it's the relevant ones. We don't take credit for visits that are driven by another paid media source. So if you engage with another media touch point after seeing our ad, it won't take credit. So this allows advertisers to, again, source their performance more accurately. I mentioned earlier, we're advertisers ourselves, so I think that we are very cognizant of the need for transparent reporting of ad fraud protections. But regardless of what you do or who you're advertising through, I think really approaching it with like I said, a kind of asking the hard questions, really kind of trying to poke holes in it, making sure that there is no incentive for ad fraud, and then making sure that the platform they're using has transparency top of mind.
Great. And here's a question about the writer's strike and its impact. How much of the ad-driven streaming services were affected by the writer's strike?
That's a bigger question. I don't know if I would have all the data on that at the moment. I think that we've seen, again, earlier we talked about streaming services. They have really been lucky in the sense that their biggest advertising, the content that has the most ad dollars assigned to it is the reruns. Again, through Mountain, we've seen this. Legacy content usually is better performing that aspect. So these streaming services, we all remember when Netflix, there was a bidding war. They got Seinfeld a few years ago. Friends hopped around and then ended up on Max. Peacock has The Office. I think a lot of people have been continually watch their favorite content. They kind of watch over and over and over again. A lot of these shows have kind of found, like The Office, have found a second life through streaming, originally on Netflix. And that is really kind of helping to weather the storm on that. We are, again, we're going to see more content be coming down the pipe. We see stuff coming along. I'm starting to see trailers for Netflix exclusive programming. There's a new movie with Adam Sandler, a new science fiction movie that's going to be hitting that service. Paramount has a new season of Halo. Everybody's kind of getting the gears up and running again. But in the meantime, I think the legacy content has really helped advertisers and viewers kind of stay locked in.
Great. Are advertisers considering CTV as more of an upper funnel strategy? Or now with shoppable ads, are they using it as a full funnel approach?
I definitely say a full funnel approach. I think that there are different strategies to be applied throughout the funnel on this. There is the obviously what your brand and your campaign is, what their goals are. But upper funnel, obviously making that initial brand awareness play, moving down the funnel, kind of looping back around through retargeting, kind of reaching back to those audiences, people who maybe watch the ad. If you think about when you watch TV ads, CTV ads, or TV ads in general, you are often on your phone, or you maybe get up, or you watch an ad and you go, "That's really cool," and then the next ad starts, or something happens in life. I know I'm guilty of that. I watch a TV ad, and I'm like, "Oh, I gotta look into that more," and then the show resumes, or something happens, and life just moves a mile a minute right now, and it's very hard to remember. Retargeting, things like that help you kind of loop back around, uh, keep that brand top of mind, being able to kind of follow again the audience through online on the web, being able to retarget in multiple different channels like that. And then, of course, bottom of the funnel converting it. So that's a very long-winded answer to say that I think that the full funnel approach is very much how advertisers are viewing CTV now. And I think there is a lot of value in working through that funnel and getting the audiences and from initial reach or initial impressions to conversion. Advertisers are seeing the benefits of CTV for that.
And here's a question about ad fatigue. What is the industry doing to help with creative or brand fatigue with CTV? It appears there's no limitation on ad frequency on most platforms.
Yeah, that's a great question as well. There is well, back it up is that there is some limitation on every platform has a different perspective on that. I think that with creative fatigue, we are big proponents of refreshing creative. Actually, if you go to Mountain's website, I highly suggest going to our blog. I I can say this because I wrote it, so it's kind of self-serving, but there are a few assets that have been produced around creative refreshes, as well as Mountain research. I really suggest going in there and looking at that. We have great data on how often your ads should be refreshed, how often they should be updated. It kind of depends on your industry and again, your goals and things like that. But like once a quarter is maybe a good general broad benchmark on that. We're big proponents of that, and of course, not hitting the consumer over the head over and over again with their ads. There are other solutions out there, like Mountain has what we have Creative as a subscription. And that's basically for bundled in with your TV and media. You get ads, high performing ads every quarter. So again, I talked about that, about the importance of refreshing every quarter. With this, for no additional cost, you're getting the ads created for you, high impact, high performing ads that can be updated and refreshed. And again, we promote things like being able, again, with Mountain, we have the ability to optimize ads. We have the ability to show you how your ads are performing in real time. So a great example of this is this is a case study that lives on Mountain's website as well, the Atlanta Hawks. They had a season where they came to Mountain. They used performance TV to advertise their games. Every week, they updated the end of the ad to show the new upcoming game for the week. And it's a really great way to kind of keep those ads refreshed, keep those ads relevant. So you're not just seeing the same Atlanta Hawks ad every week. You're seeing, oh, okay, this week they're playing XYZ. Strategies like that and kind of maybe lowering the barrier to entry for a new creative is a great way that I think Mountain and the streaming landscape in general is combating ad fatigue.
And we have time for one more question, and it's about data. Can you talk about the role of data when reaching relevant audiences compared to content or program-specific targeting? What are some best practices to create successful data-driven CTV strategies?
Yeah, that's a big question to try to distill quickly. I think that we use Mountain uses a lot of data. We use, you can use first party, third party targeting. We have I can't remember how many hundreds of thousands of audience segments. You can get very granular with your targeting and get that data in real time and how it's performing. Again, the nature of performance TV being a performance marketing platform, you can adjust your ads on the fly. So you can see how the ads are launching, see how they're performing, if they're performing better in one segment, one geographical location than another, and then use that data to update the ads um, and make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck. Make sure that they're hitting the best. We also, as I talked about earlier, have automatic optimization that allows you to do that as well. There's not as many levers to pull. Mountain Performance TV takes that and it kind of tens of thousands of times a day auto optimizes to ensure that it's taking that data and it's ensuring that the ads are hitting the right audience at the right time, the right place. Like I said, that's kind of a bigger question, but if we have the information for the speakers today or for the questions today, I can have somebody from Mountain reach out to you as well, and maybe answer that question a little bit more in depth, because I want to make sure that I am answering the question in the way you see relevant to you. So maybe that back and forth would be more helpful. So I will have somebody reach out to you as well.
Great. Stephen, what a way to kick off our 2024 Tech Talks. Thank you again for this great content and answering all of the questions from our audience. We really appreciate it. Before we wrap up, let me take a moment to tell you about eMarketer's media channels. You can register for live analyst and Tech Talk webinars on our events page at emarketer.com/events. On the audio side of the house, don't forget to tune in to Behind the Numbers, eMarketer's daily podcast. And finally, please check out our newsletters. Thank you all for your time, and thanks again to Stephen, the team at Mountain, and our eMarketer Studio team behind the scenes for making this webinar possible. We'll see you all on the next Tech Talk.